Okay, so let's go to part 2 of the video, and this is recap what we said in the previous video. It was mostly on the art. If you were to think about entrepreneurship is basically about managing risk. And the best entrepreneur is the one who only ventures on low risk ideas. And low risk ideas does not mean capital low. It basically means that the risk to reward ratio justifies pursuing the idea. But whenever we are looking at the conversation on entrepreneurship, risk is the other side of the sword. Opportunity is basically what begins. Every entrepreneur will tell you that I saw an opportunity and I took advantage of it. But opportunity is basically a risk, as it were, because the best entrepreneur is the one who sees an opportunity and is able to predict a favorable future when it comes to managing the risk side of that opportunity. But in the previous video, we also did mention it is so important that you don't approach entrepreneurship from a very, let's say, unwise point of view. And this is where we said you are basically going for broke. And an example of going for broke would be anything that can be compared to what Elon Musk did when he liquidated most of his companies to go and start Tesla. The probability that if he was wrong, he would have gone broke was very high. But today we do celebrate him as an amazing entrepreneur and a think tank, as it were. But the approach is actually discouraged in any given setting because Elon Musk, as it were, is a basic outlier. He doesn't fall within the normal scale or statistical pool of entrepreneurs. Not to say that he is special, which he is, but to show that his strike rate or his accuracy rate when it comes to betting on an idea seems to be pegged on things more than economics, as it were. But you don't do that. You don't go for broke. So what do you do? Now, before you even go to what you do, let us see some of the basic ideas that we can have. The first one, ideas on why businesses fail. Why do most businesses that start fail? So let us start with the first one. The first one is the product was mistimed. The product was mistimed or misdefined. It was mistimed or misdefined. Let me show what I mean by practice. The smartphone idea was not initially popularized by Google. We actually have Microsoft, which had started its own Windows smartphones, and they really were a flop. It was really a flop. And the reason why that was the case is because the product was timely in that there was a need to go to the smart industry, but it was misdefined. In misdefined, what we mean is this: there was a mismatch between the smartphone that they brought to the market and what the market really wanted. That is what you call a mismatch. It's a product mismatch. It was at the right time. The idea was at the right time, but how it came to the market was actually wrong. Now, we have other situations that are mistimed. A product is mistimed. And the best one is PayPal. Now, if you listen to interviews of most of the entrepreneurs that were responsible for this idea, the first one was Elon Musk and the other one was Peter Thiel or Thiel, I don't know how you pronounce it. Their initial idea is they wanted to create something that looked like Bitcoin. But it is not until they saw Bitcoin that they said, this is actually what we wanted to create. I repeat, PayPal is a leader in the what you call mobile wallets or online payments. But the vision that Peter Thiel and Elon Musk had was not one of creating PayPal as we know it today. What they initially wanted was a currency that was digital in nature. But the problem was that during that time they could not create the product because there was not the needed resources to do that, or the idea was not communicated correctly. It is not until Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market came into play that most of them, or the guys that started the mobile wallet and all those ideas, said, this is actually what we wanted. This is actually what we meant. Something that can replace fiat currency. So we have a possibility of a product mismatches. That's the first thing. Now, the other reason why most businesses fail, there is no market need. And this is the biggest. And this is the reason why I am insisting you do not go the traditional way where you put in all your money before the market validates the need. And note the keyword, validates the need. And how you validate this need is by testing and trying to prove or disprove your assumptions or hypotheses. For those who have already read the book The Lean Startup, you can already see what we mean by this. Now, let me say this. 90% of businesses will fail. And this is according to a Harvard research. Actually, it's supposed to be 95, but let's be conservative. 90% do fail. But the reason why they do fail is because there is a very faulty assumption in the planning or converting the idea into a business. And we always assume that you create a business plan that includes the following: the financial plan, the marketing plan, the break-even analysis. All those things, you put them here and assumes once you have the plan right and you incur the costs or mobilize the resources, then you should have success if your plan is sound. But what we are slowly noticing, and Harvard Business School and other Ivy League business schools are agreeing on, is that there is no basis for the plan. Everything that is in that plan is not based on reality because the idea has not been validated by the market. It has been validated by the entrepreneur. And this is where business failure begins. When the idea or the opportunity makes sense only to the entrepreneur. You do not want that to be the case. You want the idea or the market to be the product to be validated by the market. In other words, there is a market need for the product. And you do this by testing the assumptions of your hypothesis. No market need. So you cannot start from this front of start with a business plan, go to resources, then assume you will be successful. Any business that goes that direction does not work. Hi kitty cat, hi kitty cat. Shoo, go away. Sorry about that. Okay, so where was I? Yes, taking this approach does not work most of the times. That's the first thing we have established. So we are saying that and this is even more repetitive, that every product that you are thinking of in your head, or every opportunity that you're thinking of in your head, has what you call underlying assumptions. And I said, for example, you come up with a smartphone that only does the following: call and text. No WhatsApp, no social, no office, no nothing. The reason is that people are getting stressed and mental health is at the forefront. Mental health is at the forefront. That's an assumption I am making to create that product. I am assuming that there is a market or there is a niche where someone wants to take back control of their lives beyond the very addictive apps that we have. That's assumption number one. Assumption number two is that someone is willing to pay for a smartphone that has only two functions, because mental health is very, very important to them. We're seeing a correlation between smartphones and stress levels and rates of depression. Those are assumptions that I have made. Now, the mistake that I would make if I was a conventional entrepreneur is I assume that this idea is valid. In other words, I validate it in my head because all the data says go in this direction. But if I incur the costs, let me just separate this. But if I incur the costs and I find out I was wrong, then the business will lose all the money. And bear in mind, the following are the sources of income. 75% of businesses today use personal finance and savings. In other words, you will take your savings, just like Elon Musk, and you put it on an idea based on certain assumptions that you have made about the market. But if you incur the total cost, let's assume that the idea is going to incur a cost of 700 million. If you incur the cost of 700 million and you are wrong, in other words, there is no market need for that product, then you will incur that loss. Now, please take time to go through the Cold Fusion YouTube channel and the Hook YouTube channel, and you'll be able to see case upon case, case upon case. And the perfect example of this is WeWork. I sent you the link to that video. And the assumptions that these people had was one of what you call peer-to-peer systems. And peer-to-peer systems are very popular. For example, they are doing away with intermediaries. Cryptocurrency is a peer-to-peer system where we are removing the intermediary, which is the central bank. Uber is a peer-to-peer system where we are removing intermediaries, taxi organizations, and so forth, and we're saying, I own a car, I can present it as a service, and you need a car to get to a certain point. That's a peer-to-peer system. Peer-to-peer lending systems as Branch and Teller, I have money that I want to invest and I want a good return on it. Branch comes up with an application and says, we are lending this money and the average rate of return is this. So it's very, very good. So Branch makes money lending that through to you through M-Pesa, but there are other people who are giving Branch money through the online system. No intermediary. It's until we notice that these peer-to-peer systems were a problem that the government tried to intervene, because they are so deregulated that they go straight to the person and there are not many intermediaries as it were. So WeWork was working on that same assumption, a peer-to-peer system that involves sharing of office space. A very good idea. It would actually work in Kenya, where most of you listeners are working from home. What if someone could establish an office for you and you get to meet your clients within a very professionally looking ecosystem? You would be able to convert more people for your business. That is true. So that was the assumption, that someone else is willing to incur the cost for the business space, make it professional looking with all the pomp and bells and whistles, and then charge you to use the space. That was a very, very good idea. But look at the assumptions. The first assumption is someone is willing to pay for the space. That's the first assumption. The second thing is there is demand for that kind of space. For that kind of space. These are two assumptions. But the guys that were starting the idea made the very horrible mistake that we're talking about here. That once you have an idea, do not validate it. Let the market validate it for you and tell you that indeed there is a market need. There is a market need. And again, the reason for that is 75% of the resources are yours. You don't want to go broke pursuing an idea that way. So how do you pre-validate an idea without incurring the cost? Because we know that $1 billion plus went down the drain because of an idea that was not pre-validated. There was no market need. There was no market need. If there was a market need, then you would go incur the costs. And once you incur the cost, then you start making revenue. And I hope I'm not taking this thing too far to say, every idea that you will have, do not incur money first. Test it and try it and validate it. That's the first thing. The reason is that, one, the risk is you can have the product being mistimed or misdefined. So if you pivot your idea, and let me explain what to pivot is. You started an idea as WeWork, or let me even give an example. You started an idea of a cyberspace where you believe that people are willing to pay you to access the internet. But then again, internet costs is going down, fiber connectivity is going up, and all those things. So if you do not pivot and change into another space, you're likely to be irrelevant. So what we mean by pivoting is the minute your product hits the market, you start to change and you start to adapt to the changes in the market. What is the customer telling you? What is the market telling you? What is the economy telling you? What is your own bottom line and finances or your books telling you? Those are the things that really, really do matter when it comes to entrepreneurship. Now, reason number one was this. The second reason you do not want to incur all the cost at a go is if there is no market need. If there is no market need. Now, this is what I mean by if there is no market need. We have explained it here. You had your assumptions and your assumptions were wrong and you created a product and nobody wanted that product. Don't take it personally. But there's a way to protect yourself from this again. You do not incur every cost all the way to the end. You pre-validate, test, and try. Again, I'll repeat until it becomes a mantra. Reason number two, there is no market need. You need to prevent yourself from that. The other reason why most of the businesses fail is that firms run out of cash. And here are certain myths. Myth number one is that if you create a very good product, it can sell itself. That's the first thing. Then, if you're not able to give aesthetics or secondary qualities to the product, it fails. I'll repeat. Myth number one, if you create a very, very superior product, then it should sell itself. Chema, Chajuza, Kibaya. Goodness, what the hell did they say about that methali? Anyway, I was bad at Swahili. Touche. Chema Chajuza. That's an assumption that most people make. That in other words, if I create a very good product, if I create a very a very appealing product, the referrals will keep coming in, referrals will keep coming in, referrals will keep coming in. But let us examine this truth, and we will use one company, HTC. Again, I did give you this on your video, on YouTube link for you to view. HTC was a very, very good phone company. If anything, I have seen the HTC phones and they're just amazing. They're just amazing, amazing products. In terms of durability, it's a very, very good product. Just a minute, just a minute. Okay, so HTC was in the mobile phone space, and within the mobile phone space, it, it was just one of those products that was just perfect. The CEO just said, create an amazing product, and they did. And they did. If you go through that YouTube channel, so durable was the phone that it didn't get destroyed when it goes through the various abuses that we can have when we're using it. And the other thing is that in terms of aesthetics as a product, it was a very good it was a very good phone. It was a very good phone. But the CEO and the chief operating officer made a very huge miscalculation. And that miscalculation came when they decided that we have a very good product. Let us save money. Let us save money by not doing a lot of advertising. Because within the phone, mobile phone space, advertising is a very huge cost. And the reason why they made this is because at the base of their thought system was that we have created a good product, then it should sell itself. It should sell itself. But if you went through that video again, you know HTC collapsed. And the reason why it collapsed is because Samsung came into the space and they were too aggressive when it comes to advertising. The rest is history. Assumption number one, very, very wrong. Very, very wrong. Assumption number two, that if you give aesthetics and secondary qualities in their abundance, many of these aesthetics or secondary qualities, then the product will succeed. That's an assumption. It is not always correct. It is not always correct. That is because you are lost and you have digressed away from the core product. The core product. Let me give an example of what I mean by this assumption number two. An example would be one. I want to create a coffee house targeting the middle income household. But the mistake that most people will make is they'll focus so much on the aesthetics and the brand visibility, and they forget that these aspects over here are held together by the core product and the core value proposition. And this is why the American brand called Popeyes is struggling so much because they did everything right as far as franchise management is concerned. How do we want our brand to be perceived? But at the core product, there is a lot of quality issues, process issues, and customer complaints. Chuck E. Cheese is also another global brand that is having serious issues with this. So then the opposite is also true. You decide aesthetics and brand is not the key thing, but you create a very good product. Again, there is a very high probability that that product will be so compelling that people will basically ignore the lack of secondary aspects to support the product. And this would be held in place by, let me just give simpler examples. If you go through the bypass and you have these nyama choma joints all over the place, you will notice that these places are not more concerned about aesthetics, ambience, or whatever. They're not concerned about those things. Those are not what drives those brands. It is the core product, and the core product is so good that most of the middle income people will ignore the lack of the secondary aspects of the product to support it. Therefore, it is very possible to create a very good core product and have customers ignore the lack of the secondary aspects that support the product. Now, why am I saying all this? Is because a business will shut down because it ran out of cash. And most of the cash is being lost when people are when people are chasing aesthetics and secondary aspects that do not support the core product. So that means if you create a core product that you feel is very good, core product that you feel is very good, you can be able to piggyback it on other value chains or supply chains and have it succeed even though the secondary aspects or the auxiliary aspects of it are missing and lacking. The customer experience is not enriching, but the core product is just so compelling. But the person that focuses on the core product and creates a very good product is likely to survive. So how do you survive? Focus on this core product. Again, validate it, so that you do not run out of cash chasing bells and whistles and aesthetics. That's another reason why businesses fail. Now we go to the other reason why businesses fail. You had the wrong team. Now it is very possible to have a very good idea. Very possible to have the good idea executed well in terms of marketing and so forth. A very good idea that has an existential need. In other words, there is need for that product. But if you get the team wrong, then your product or the company will fail. Now, we say in entrepreneurship, there are two classes of teams. There is the takeoff team. Then there is the stability team. Now, under the stability team, we also have the sell-off team. Over here, let me explain them. The takeoff team needs to be lean, because at the initial level of the idea, you're trying to be as low on costs and expenditure so that you can survive the most important cycles of the business and not run out of cash. So the team that you're starting the business with can be friends. Yes, a person who is a friend is very good, very good. It can be family. I don't refute that. That's very good. It can even be your own girlfriend, as it were. Very good. Very possible. But if you're not careful about the team structure, once you get to the stability stage, in other words, the business has gained stability and it's now making money on its own, if you still keep the old team, there are likelihoods that there will be a mismatch between the ecosystem that the business holds at the moment and what was there before. So the team that is needed to take off the business may not necessarily be the same as the team that needs to be at the stability stage. Now, if you decide to change the team and you get people now that are specialized, that have a marketing person who's been trained for this, I just create a board, and this board is made of the old team. You get your share of the company, no doubt, but let us get someone who is trained for this thing. Now, most people tend to get lost on the details because they have ownership of the idea so much that they are not willing to give it over to someone else. And this is why Nakumat failed, this is why Taskis failed, and this is why most of family-led businesses fail, because they are unwilling to relinquish control of the company to a person who is trained to manage it. And that's where things start going wrong, because the vision that these people have at this stage may not be enough to take the business beyond the next 10 years or 15 years. It may be lacking, and the skill set may be lacking, and the experience may also be lacking. So the team needs to change. So as an entrepreneur, I would insist, create a team. Yes, the business gets to stability, yes, but be willing to let go of the idea. Now, there are even certain cases where the business becomes so lucrative and it makes so much money that you need to sell it for it to see another era of profitability. Now, if you are still lost on the details, it's your company and it's this and it's that and it's this and that, you will miss out on opportunities to liquidate the company at a huge profit and be able to see the idea that you started out with become a huge idea. And this is what PayPal did right. Elon Musk did well. They started the idea, it became profitable. Peter Thiel did the same thing, partner to the PayPal. And after the PayPal company became profitable, they opted to sell it. Because the person who bought it, or the entity that bought it, understood the vision that they can create to make PayPal a global brand. And so it is today. And that is so important when it comes to business. Be willing to sell out. But of great importance, create a team that is lean at the beginning. But as the business goes through the various cycles, get the business to have the right team structure. And this involves making the hard choices. If you have to fire your friend, it has to happen. If you have to fire your girlfriend, it has to happen for the business to survive. Understand those aspects, and we shall see this when we'll be talking about creating a good team for entrepreneurship. Another reason is a product, why businesses fail, is a product does not have a business model, has no business model. Your idea must have a model. And this model is not theoretical. This model is as practical as it gets. So what is a model? I create a product. I call it Xbox. How do I produce this product? How do I produce this product? How do I sell this product? How do I monetize auxiliary products? And so forth. If you create the wrong model, you will end up being in the wrong market and niche. If you create the wrong model, you will end up being in the wrong market or niche. Let me explain what I basically mean by this. Two companies that we spoke about last time. One of them was YouTube. The other one was Vimeo. Mistake of mistakes. YouTube already owns a very huge chunk of the market when it comes in the video streaming, free video streaming. But let us look at the model. What we mean by a model. YouTube does not charge for you to use their service. So you can post all the content that you have, and once you post the content, you will get your views, and these views, we will be able to monetize them using advertising. This is the model that YouTube uses. Vimeo entered into the same space, and they misunderstood that YouTube could play any role. Entertainment, business, education, all those things had already been captured by YouTube. But Vimeo was trying to compete with YouTube at the same space. And we said last time that it could not compete because the model was basically wrong. They were in the wrong market niche, and they were struggling because they were not getting as many users. That's the first thing. And Vimeo was not as good a product as compared to YouTube. So YouTube uses a freemium model, but Vimeo decides for us to survive and for us to become a billion-dollar company, we need to remodel our approach. We need to remodel our approach. And this is how we do it. We focus on business enterprises that are basically selling video content. Video content. I have a course. I do not want my videos to be stolen. The best person is Vimeo or another company called Vidocifer. The most competitive one is Vidocifer, but it's not known that much. But Vimeo is here. Therefore, Vimeo's model is not a freemium model. It is basically a pay model. It has its free side, but if you want to sell videos, you can be able to be charged to post your, to upload your videos and have certain features. So they create a very good feature system that makes it so lucrative to use Vimeo as a way of selling your content. This is what we mean. They create features, and these features are being sold. So we give a free trial, and after you love the trial, you start selling your video. But also, if I want to view videos, I can be able to go to Vimeo and find them there. So this is a different model, and this is the model that created Vimeo to become a billion-dollar model. Now let us look at Viusasa as a model. Viusasa's model is, we have subscribers on Citizen. We tell these subscribers, if you want to use, if you want to view a certain episode before time, you can go to Viusasa, and you'll be charged a flat fee. But let us see the model pluses and minuses. It's true, they have their subscribers, and these subscribers pay a flat fee. But it is not very clear what this is all about. When they are also having tenders on the Viusasa app, they're having mobile payments on the Viusasa, they're having bill payments. They have not clarified what their business model is. Therefore, the probability that Viusasa will fail is very high. It is kept afloat by the fact that Citizen is a monopoly and they can throw money at the idea. This is a wrong model. It will not work. It will fail. You go to music copyrights was supposed to be the way to pay the artists. So we force radio stations to pay a certain fee, and this fee trickles down to the artists. But in reality, very little gets to the artists. And most of the artists will say they are being exploited by this model. So again, this model failed over here. But let's look at the Skiza model. Skiza model is the most lucrative model because all a person has to do is choose a certain tune, subscribe to it, and pay a fee. And then this fee is shared across Citizen, it's shared across the artist, and the artists are actually seeing the benefits of it. That is why it's so lucrative even for offshore artists or East African artist, this model works, this doesn't work. So if there's any takeaway from this, is this: you cannot get the model wrong. That is one of your product. You cannot get the need wrong. That is two. You cannot get the timing and the definition wrong. That is 3 and 4. Then you cannot afford to get the team wrong. That's another one. And you cannot afford to run out of cash. And under cash, you can have issues of pricing and cost issues. You can have other issues under it. But let me summarize this whole thing so that we can go to the next video. If we were to summarize them, under product timing and product misdefinition, we cannot be able to tell is our product in time or not in time. That we cannot do. But we can manage the risk. We can manage the risk. We cannot be able to predict the future as far as the market need is concerned, but we can validate the idea. We cannot be able to predict how far our cash will go in time, but we can stretch 1 shilling to a longer period. In other words, we are buying time. And this means we are focusing on the core product and not on the aesthetics. Under the cash also, we need to consider the fact that we need to get the pricing right and the cost issues right. Now, we go to the issue of team. We cannot afford to do poor marketing and have a poor market team. We cannot afford to ignore customers. We will fail. We cannot afford to have a user-unfriendly product. We will fail. We need a product that is very, very friendly to the consumer. So the team needs to handle those issues correctly. Now, the other thing which is of great importance is this. You cannot afford to get your model wrong. How is this product being produced? How is it getting to the customer? How are we monetizing our value proposition? You cannot afford to get it wrong. Now, with that said and done, let us go to the next video and see how we can be able to minimize these risks. Thank you.